Osram has endorsed the Bain and Carlyle offer, but you've stopped short of doing that for AMS. Do you have concerns about the offer from AMS?
Good morning, Naira. Good morning, Manus. Thank you for having me. So last night we, together with the supervisory board, decided to support the agreement. It's the offer. It's a 10% premium to what Bain Carlyle has offered. The funding we looked at is it looks as viable and sustainable. So from that perspective, we decided, together with the cooperation agreement, to support the deal.
Ingo, good morning to you. It's Manus. I've got to ask you, AMS, they wanted to bid, then they pulled out, then they asked for permission to bid again. I got to say to you, Ingo, it looks like there's a big credibility gap here with AMS in that they don't really know whether they want to be in this deal. That doesn't set out a good stall for the future if they win, does it?
Well, if you look at what they provided to us, from a funding perspective for the transaction, but also if you look at the what's now been included in the cooperation agreement, I have to say this is a very sincere agreement, a very professional agreement. We had very professional and constructive discussions with them. So from that perspective and against that backdrop, and rest assured that we looked at all stakeholders in Osram, we support it. So we think it's a very credible offer to have.
How will you get the unions on board with this, and also some sort of broad concerns that Manus was pointing to as well about AMS's debt levels?
Well, again, I think I cannot speak to what the unions have said. All I can point out to is that in the cooperation agreement signed with them, we made quite some comprehensive agreements as far as the labor force and certain company locations are concerned. We took care that the agreement is at least as good as the one that we concluded with Bain Carlyle. So from that perspective, from a management board perspective, we can say that supports the employees, and that's also why we recommended it. Because again, in Germany, you cannot just look at the offer price, which is of course important, but also look at the stakeholders and the employees, and that's what we did, and that's also what's anchored in the cooperation agreement.
Okay, so the credibility, there is no credibility gap. I think that's essentially what you're trying to communicate to us. But the essence of these deals is about synergies and extracting synergies. And if you look at private equity and AMS, are they going to be able to stick to the promised synergies, Ingo? What conversation did you have around that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, with a strategic or industrial buyer, you have a different perspective because you are able to leverage synergies. So we had some insight on the synergies, although limited. We think that the cost synergies are feasible. The only question is how fast are you able to realize those. There were some revenue synergies contemplated, but we had too little insight to be able to say something from a Osram perspective. And I think for further details, you have to probably ask the management board of AMS. But overall, again, from a cost synergy perspective, I think what they put together is feasible. The question is a bit timing.
Do you have any sense of a number you could give us in terms of those synergies, Ingo?
No, I personally cannot. I think it's for AMS to make that statement. I think a week ago when they announced to the world that they would contemplate an offer for Osram, they mentioned a number of around 300 million euros run rate synergies.
Do you think, given the backdrop to the state of the global economy, is hindering the valuation? No,
I don't think so. Of course, valuations look a bit different now than compared to a year ago, but overall, of course, what's in the forefront of these discussions is the longer-term strategy, and that also, of course, is incorporated in the valuation. I think the strategy here is to create the global leader in sensor solutions and photonics, and for instance, the combinations allows us to sort of make a significant step for our Component Plus strategy for our opto-semiconductors divisions, for instance. So from that perspective, industrially speaking, the strategy is quite compelling, actually.
In terms of longer-term strategy, Ingo, are you planning to be part of that? In other words, do you intend to keep working for Osram after the deal, whatever that ends up being, finishes?
Well, I have a contract with the company right now. I have no intentions to change that contract. The cooperation agreement also says that AMS supports the current management composition. So from their perspective, the intention, of course, today is, yes, of course, to support Osram going forward.